It's Bend Your Ear with Ben Hartong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Bend Your Ear, Episode 4. As always, I'm Ben Hartong, the best 13-year-old talk show host that owns a singing menorah. Yup, bet you can't beat that. Well, unless one of you also has a podcast and a singing menorah. Well, anyway, I have a great show planned ahead. Right next to me are a few of the many Mensch on the Bench products, and you guessed it, today's special guest is the brains behind all of it. Wow. That's the first time I've introduced my special guest before I let them on the show. Feels pretty good to get that off my chest. But first, the way we always begin the show, it's time for Rooney's Corner.
Hello.
Hello, welcome back to the show.
Well, it's an honor to be here. Do you know about the Mensch playing fetch?
Oh, of course, I love the Mensch on the Bench.
No, it's a new invention I came up with called Mensch playing fetch. It's a stuffed dog that looks like a Mensch on the bench. It also plays fetch. You can get it at Petco.
Okay, well, I'll have to check that out. Can you tell us a little bit more about the work you put in to create the Mensch playing fetch?
Well, it started with me picking up doo-doo from my dog. Then I had an idea to make a Mensch playing fetch. I took a stuffed dog, programmed it to play fetch, glued a fake beard on it, placed a tiny bag of fresh doo-doo on it, and gave it a nice doggy smell.
Well, can we see what the final product looks like?
Sure, I have it right here.
Oh, wow. Okay. That certainly looks interesting.
It was very hard.
Yeah. I'm afraid that's all the time we have for Rooney's Corner. I'll see you next time.
Bye-bye!
Okay, so as you heard earlier, my special guest is a creator of Mensch on the Bench. Introducing Mr. Neal Hoffman.
Hello, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, of course. All right, so as we know, you are the creator of Mensch on the Bench, and the idea actually came from your son asking an elf on the shelf for Christmas. So can you tell us a little bit more of that backstory and how that idea came to be?
Sure. So I was in the toy industry. I used to work on G.I. Joe and Tonka trucks. And then I left the toy industry and we moved to Cincinnati. And we were walking through a store one day, and my son said, "Daddy, can we get an elf on a shelf?" And I was just messing around, and I was like, "No, man, you can get a Mensch on a bench." And I fell in love with that idea kind of on the spot. It just stuck in my head. That night, I went and I wrote the story for Mensch, went into Jake's room and read it to him, and he really liked the story. And then I said, you know what? Instead of just making one of these for my family, why don't we go into Kickstarter and see if anyone else would be interested? And that was the beginning. That was 8 years ago, and I can't believe we're still going strong.
Wow, that's awesome. So your invention started off by another invention, and if it weren't for your son, Mensch on the Bench might not be a thing.
Absolutely. And did you know that Jacob's middle name is Maccabee? So it's Jacob Maccabee Hoffman, and it's ironic because the Maccabees, the story of Hanukkah is about the Maccabees and how they fought for Jews' freedom. So it's the irony that I named him after the Maccabees, and then he inspired this whole Mensch on a Bench phenomenon.
Yeah, of course. It kind of all fits together like pieces of a puzzle.
All right, so after you had the idea to create the Mensch on a Bench, you appeared on Shark Tank, where two of the sharks, Lori and Robert, made you an offer that you would later accept. So can you tell us about that and your experience on Shark Tank, but where that led the company and how it's doing, almost 7 years later?
Yeah, so I was terrified when we went on Shark Tank. I was sweating, I was nervous, but I was really prepared. So I'd watched every episode of Shark Tank. I had read all the Sharks' books. And when I gave them their Mensches, I had personalized each of their books with a little story about how they had impacted me in some way.
Wow.
And, I think that made a big difference. I would say the first half of Shark Tank, they were really laying into me, asking me tough questions. And once I got out the fact that I was a former toy guy at Hasbro and that I'd already in hand had $750,000 in purchase orders, then it turned around pretty quick. So it went from really bad to really good in like a second. And then Robert and Laurie made me an offer, and I countered their offer. They offered me at 30%. I said I'd do it for 15%. And then Barbara chimed in and was like, no, I got a different deal. I got a better deal. And then I said to Barbara, I was like, well, I want to at least hear the answer to my counter. I think that's fair. And Robert and Laura jumped at it. So we've been together 8 years. They're great partners. I still talk to them. We're still on great terms, and they're part of the company.
It's crazy, just this little spark of imagination turned into this whole company with, these billionaires getting in on all the action and stuff. That's incredible. And I actually watched that video the other day. I saw, for the first half that, some of the sharks seemed kind of skeptical, but then at the end when they, 3 of the sharks ended up making you an offer, and then you were able to work with 2 of them, and then see how that ends up years later.
So I'm still a little bitter that Mark Cuban didn't like the idea. But what's funny is I keep running into these same circles as Mark Cuban, and I have a friend of mine who ran into him at a bar and sat down next to him and said, man, you should have done the Mensch on a bench. And I ran into someone else when I went to the White House Hanukkah party. I was standing there, and I was with a congressman from New York, Steve Israel, Jewish guy, super nice. And he was like, you know what? I was just with Mark Cuban the other day, and we were talking about you. And I was saying he was a schmuck for not investing in Mensch on a bench. And I thought it was so funny that, here I am talking about Mark Cuban. Of course I am. But somewhere Mark Cuban is talking about me once in a while. I think that's funny.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so, after the Mensch on the bench started getting more sales and getting more popular, you expanded the company with more products, including the plush dreidel, the singing menorah. You created the Ask Bubby character, and Hana the Hanukkah hero. So after those products came to be, I'm guessing more families started to buy your products, and now Mensch on the Bench has served over 250,000 families. So what's it like knowing that, all these families have come to your company and, your invention has reached so many people?
It's cool. It's a good feeling, right? Because it's something I believe in. It's something I think is adding something to the world, bringing a little bit of joy, bringing some tradition. And I get emails and pictures from people of their kids doing stuff with Mensch and talking about their traditions, and I really appreciate it, right? It really does matter to me because the roots of Mensch are just in my family, and we're an interfaith family. So we're trying to raise kids Jewish, and I needed a tool, and to see other people using Mensch the way it was intended, it's really cool.
Yeah, that's incredible how it started from this one family to over, to 2,000s of families now.
Now, I'll give you a tour of the Mensch headquarters here if you want. We're in my office. I'll take you through some of the Mensch items. So we did have the dreidel dog.
Of course.
That was our first Mensch pet.
Uh-huh.
So came out with the mitzvah moose.
Mitzvah moose.
We, of course, have Ask Bubby.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah, the Hanukkah hero. We have Papa, who is here.
Yeah.
This one never came out. Nobody's ever seen this before.
Okay. I'm excited.
We did Judah Maccabee, and we were playing with this idea, and we might bring him out at some point, but we've been playing with that idea.
Okay.
And then for this year, nobody's seen this. One picture has gone out on this, but that's all. So we're going to break news on the Ben Hartong. But here it is.
Oh my gosh.
The snow Mensch. So he's really cute. It comes in this cute little package, so you can see the snow Mensch. And he sings the dreidel song, but he does 8 different versions of it. With the Maccabees, so they are the ones singing, and it came out really great. So I'm excited for this year. So we got 2 new items this year. We refreshed Bubby, so there's a brand new Bubby. We have not revealed what that is yet, and now everybody knows about the Snow Mensch.
Wow, the Hanukkah snowman in Judah the Maccabee. Wow, that is awesome. So breaking news on my show. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing all those. It's kind of a whole Mensch family now. It started out with just, plain old Mochi the Mensch, and here we are with all these products now.
Yeah, and everybody thinks it's super successful, but you also remember we haven't done everything right. And you talked about how in the first year we did the dreidel and we did the menorah. We don't have those anymore. They didn't do that great. And what I figured out is that people really liked the characters that we were doing. And that was really how we could make a difference. But just putting Mensch on a menorah or a dreidel, that wasn't moving the needle for people. They weren't really interested.
Yeah, so as I hear you talking about the dreidel and the menorah, I actually remember the recording for the singing menorah because I was there. It was a long time ago. I was probably in, I don't know, first or second grade, and then we went to this recording studio, and then we started singing a bunch of Hanukkah songs, and then here they are in the singing plush menorah.
Yeah, so this is a little known fact that you are, in fact, one of the 6 voices singing on the Mensch menorah. That was a limited edition item, came out for 2 years. And the idea behind it was we thought kids might not know all the prayers, so we would have other kids sing to them, and then they could learn them in a cute way. So and that's one of the reasons I was excited to do this interview. You've been a huge fan of Mensch since day one. You've been super supportive. When I said, hey, we need kids to do the voice, you were, of course, there in the first second. So you had your own podcast. I wanted to return the favor and see if I could help you with some content.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for being here. I still remember that to this day, little 7-year-old Ben and 5-year-old Maggie in this giant recording studio recording Hebrew songs for this Mensch product.
Yeah, and did you guys get on Beyond the Tank too? Were you recorded at Joseph Beth Bookstore?
Yes, I completely forgot about that. We did that too, Beyond the Tank. Yes, when you talked about kind of your experience on Shark Tank.
So I've been on Shark Tank. I was on Beyond the Tank. We had a Shark Tank update. And then I was on Shark Tank a couple more times very briefly as part of other segments. So in total, we've been on 5 times, which is...
Wow. Yeah, that's a big deal, national television, Shark Tank, that's great. All right, so 5 years ago, it was announced that a potential TV movie special was being worked on. So if that's still going, so are you guys still working on that? And, if so, how's it going?
So we licensed the rights to Pilgrim Entertainment in LA. We went out there. They came up with some really cool ideas for Hanukkah specials. We shopped it around to a bunch of different networks. And at the time, the networks liked the idea, but they weren't ready to spend. It was going to be a lot of money to create this animation, to create it for such a small segment, right? Because Jews are only 2%, but then Jewish kids are even smaller. So it kind of just got put on hold. And as streaming entertainment becomes bigger and you have all of these new entries, with Hulu and Peacock, and then you got Netflix and Prime and everything else, my hope is that it will get rekindled at some point and someone will see that it could be a great piece of entertainment. But it just never quite got off the ground, although we had some really cute ideas for it.
Yeah, well, you know what? We need to get that back up and running. We need a Mensch special, just like they have Charlie Brown Christmas, Charlie Brown, they got the Great Pumpkin special, they got all these holiday specials, yet where's our Hanukkah special? We need our animated Mensch on the Bench Hanukkah special, so hopefully that gets back up and running.
I totally agree, and I think one day we'll get it. And that every year kids can sit down and watch the Mensch on Bench special. I think it would be awesome.
Yeah, of course, that would be very exciting.
All the different characters. Now you can tell an even better story of you get Bubby and the moose and the dog and the snowman. Like they can all get involved now. So
yeah, of course. Right, now the word Mensch actually means a person of high integrity and honor, and it's a commonly used Yiddish word to describe people who are admired and do good deeds. Now, I know that teaching children to be a mensch is something that's very important to you. Is there anything you want to say to all those families that use the Mensch on the Bench and some of the other Mensch products about how to be a mensch, especially, during the holiday season?
That's a good question. I will tell you about last page of Mensch has a set of rules that you should use your Mensch on Bench for, right? So one of them is you name your Mensch, one of them is you take his picture, one of them is you move him every night because he gets tired. And one of the rules that we added, and we took out a different rule, was one night of Hanukkah, you should give presents to those in need instead of getting presents yourself. So I think that is an idea that we are trying to do in my own family, and I encourage other people to do it. I think it embodies what Mensch stands for. And I think we see some really cool social media. People post all these cool pictures of what they're doing with their Mensches. Classrooms having Mensch of the week for the kid who's really well behaved, or a kid who does something very nice for his friend. So we, of course, encourage people to act like that. We run the company like that. We always try and do the right thing. And I think it's a cool thing to teach people to just be kind.
Yeah, that's obviously a very important thing that people can be focusing on right now. And circling back to when you said, encouraging kids to name their Mensches, I'm thinking about our three Mensches in our household. We have Morty, we have Menchie, and then we have Norm. Which actually, Norm is kind of funny because we now, a couple years later, we got a dog named Norm. So, yeah, Norm and Norm kind of work well together.
I'll tell you, one of the things people love doing, they love sending pictures of babies with the Mensch and dogs with the Mensch. I have 100 different pictures of the Mensch on a dog's back, and it's so cute every time. I love it.
That is something funny. I would love to do that. Not sure if our dog would be as cooperative. He's not usually very cooperative when there's a camera. So we'll have to see how that works. I know we always have our Mensches do silly things, each night of Hanukkah. That's something we enjoy looking at every morning, is the crazy antics they're all up to.
I love that. I love when people send me pictures of the antics, and I love putting that on our Facebook page, and we share it. And, with Facebook, you can see how many people have seen a certain post. And there'll be days where I wake up and I'm like, I can't believe that 100,000 people saw this overnight. It's cool to know that you're actually impacting people and bringing a smile to their face.
Yeah, I remember one time the Mensches, they TP'd our house, which was fun. So that was quite the enjoyment that morning. So the Mensch on the Bench has been featured on many shows, particularly talk shows and news channels. So as we heard earlier, you appeared on Shark Tank back in 2013. But what some people might not know is that the Mensch on a Bench has been featured on The Today Show, it's been featured on The View, it's been featured on Fox Business, and many other local news stations. Now, I'm sure that those appearances help your company grow. And if so, how did the Mensch on the Bench, benefit from all those appearances?
So it's absolutely benefited. I think it helped us get the word out. And then in later years, it just reminds people to take out their Mensch and to enjoy him. What is really cool is that Mensch on a Bench has become the most publicized brand to ever come out of Shark Tank. We have over 3.5 billion, with a B, billion media views. And why that is a few reasons. One is it's funny, right? We don't take ourselves too seriously. But the other thing is, versus all those other companies, Hanukkah comes every year. And the news is always looking for something to talk about. And Hanukkah's 5,000 years old, so there's not a lot of news after 5,000 years. So it gives them something to talk about. And every year we try and do something fun. One year, we introduced Bubby. Then I brought the Mensch costume. I bring that around the country around Hanukkah and do local news stations. And it makes for great entertainment. People love doing it. People love watching it. We do cameos now, which is really fun. We have a partnership with the Boston Red Sox, with the New York Mets, Orlando Magic, and we have Jewish heritage nights around the country that we're a part of. So we've grown outside of Hanukkah, and that's really cool to have broken into the mainstream Jewish culture.
Wow, that's very incredible. About that. All right, this is my last question I have. So many some of the future generation and younger generations of future entrepreneurs. Is there anything in particular you want to say? Maybe any advice for some of the future generations looking to get into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I mean, I tell people if you care about something, go ahead and do it. Whatever it is, find your way. And you don't have to take huge steps. So if you love being in entertainment, start a podcast, right? I mean, you're doing it. You are an entrepreneur. And if I can do it with a Jewish doll, so I sell a toy for 2% of the population for 6 weeks of the year, and turned that into a multi-million-dollar business. If that can work, anybody can do it. So chase your dreams. You don't have to take that big swing. It's just take that first step, and that's the hardest one to take.
It's all about following your dreams. And, this podcast never would have happened if, I didn't listen to myself and follow my dreams, what I really wanted to do. And I hear you, you had a passion for this. You had been in the toy business before Mensch on the Bench was even created. And then once it was created, you kind of kept pursuing that career. And, here we are with these giant range of Mensch on the Bench products.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I love it. And I would say go after your dreams. And then once you get a little bit of it, go bigger.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So before I let you go, as you know, I always like to end the show with some sort of, fun game, some sort of game I like to do at the end of the show. So I hear you're originally from Boston. Obviously, I'm from Cincinnati. So I think it's about time to settle this debate once and for all. Which is the better city, Cincinnati or Boston?
Oh, all right. That's a hard one. Okay. Are you asking me my opinion?
Yeah. All right. So the first I have multiple categories we can kind of debate each city on. So the first one I have is food. Obviously, we have our famous Cincinnati chili. We got Skyline, Gold Star. We have La Rosa's Pizza. We got Montgomery Inn ribs. What does Boston have in terms of food?
All right. I'll tell you, Boston wins this one. Lots of people like the lobster, and they talk about the lobster. That's great. They talk about the saltwater taffy. That's great. It is the roast beef in Boston. Okay, you can't get it here, but you go. They got all these roast beef shops, like Kelly's Roast Beef, that's famous from Good Will Hunting. You go to the water, you get your roast beef, you eat it on the ocean. I mean, it's hands down, it wins. Vote for Boston.
Okay, you're saying Boston. Okay, all right. Next up, I have sports. No, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, Boston might have a little bit of an advantage. They do have NHL, NBA, NFL, and MLB. But in terms of sports, we have the Reds, the Bengals, FC Cincinnati. One thing I did want to point out, though, is we just got a brand new quarterback from the NFL draft. The Patriots just lost their quarterback of 20 years. What do you have to say of that?
And I got bad news for you. I mean, again, I got to go Boston. Red Sox history is so deep. I mean, I know that in the 70s the Reds beat us, but I'm a Red Sox guy. Trying to raise my kids on the Red Sox, which is hard in Cincinnati. But Andrew Benintendi's family lives right outside this window, which is awesome. So I'll tell you, although I'm a Boston guy, I will tell you, to go to a game in Cincinnati, although it's not like going to Fenway, it's cheap, it's easy, you can get downtown, you can go to a game whenever you want, the ballpark's gorgeous. Cincinnati did an awesome job for the All-Star game, so I'll call that a wash.
Okay.
Guy, it's hard for me to say that, but I'll give you the wash because of the All-Star game a few years ago.
The All-Star game back in 2015. Yeah, this actually brings me into my next category, places to go. Great American Ballpark, home of the Cincinnati Reds. Great stadium. I love going to the games. That's one thing I've certainly been missing this year, is not being able to go to all the Reds games. Now, aside from that, Cincinnati also has the zoo, the Cincinnati Zoo, which is one of the highest ranked zoos in the country. We have the museum at Union Terminal. And another thing I wrote down, we have Fountain Square. So, has Boston got any of that?
I mean, it's kind of not fair because Boston, being one of the original colonies in Massachusetts, has so much history and is so much bigger. So you got Boston Commons. You can go see the USS Constitution. It really is a cool place, but it's not as walkable as Cincinnati. Right there, you can go down to the parks, but it's not like one main area. Cincinnati, you can get from one end to the other really quickly. Over the Rhine is awesome. So I would say in order for like the ease of just going downtown, getting a great meal, having a good afternoon, I'm going to give you Cincinnati on that.
Okay, yeah. So you're saying, in Cincinnati you can go, you can visit, all the places Cincinnati has to offer in a lot less time than you do for Boston.
Boston's
But I'm sure Boston has some great things, to Boston, visit all the things.
1-1 with a tie for one. Is that the score so far?
I think so, yeah. You said food was Boston. You were washed on sports, and then places to go. You said Cincinnati. All right. We are down to the final category, traditions. Cincinnati traditions, the Flying Pig Marathon. We have a giant opening day parade. And I don't know if you know this, but Cincinnati has the biggest Oktoberfest in the country.
All right. Boston Marathon, kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
You get the Red Sox game, always happens during Marathon Monday, which is kind of awesome. The duck parades every time Boston wins a championship, which seems to be pretty frequent. You got the accent. I'm going to give it a wash. We're going to call it a tie today.
We're calling it a tie.
Don't tell any of my friends in Boston.
Okay. Well, I think that just about covers it. They're both great cities. I'm looking forward to, if I ever have the chance, I would love to go to Boston, see what Boston has to offer.
Get Kelly's roast beef if you go there, and you go on the swan boats, and you go around Boston Commons. You'll love it. If you like Cincinnati, you'll love Boston.
Great. All right. Thank you so much for being on my show. I'm so excited for these new Mensch products, hopefully to come out soon. I wish you the best. Thanks for coming on the show.
Great work, man, and I look forward to watching more of your podcasts. I mean, this is awesome, and I love that you're going for it. You're 12 years old, and you're just going for it, and that's awesome, man. So
thank you so much.
All right. Well, let me know if you want to interview anybody else, like what type of people you like to interview, and I'll see if I can find some more people for you.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Well, take care.
All right, bye.
Bye, Ben.
Huge thanks to Mr. Hoffman for being a part of today's broadcast. Until next time, I'm Ben Hartong. Thanks for letting me bend your ear.